Look, they tell you Seoul is all light and skincare, right? But nobody mentions the cold, not the weather, but the way a man looks at you when he owns the air you are breathing. I'm staring at a gold lighter on the table and I'm shaking.
Tuesday, 11:42 p.m. My hands won't stop fidgeting. I'm sitting in this penthouse. It's too quiet. The air smells like expensive sandalwood, and that sharp, metallic scent of rain coming off the Han River. Hyun is in the other room. I can hear the low, rhythmic murmur of his voice. That business voice that makes my skin crawl and tingle all at the same time. He's the big mafia boss everyone whispers about. But to me, he's just the man who keeps buying me shoes I'm too scared to wear. I looked in the mirror today and barely saw the girl from the trenches. The girl who knew how to scrap for every penny in South London. Now I'm draped in silk that costs more than my mother's rent. It feels like a bribe or a shroud. There's a bruise on his knuckle. He tried to hide it when he poured my wine. But I saw it, I always see it, every time he touches me. I wonder whose blood was on those hands an hour before. It's a heavy kind of love. You know, like it's beautiful, but it's crushing the breath right out of my lungs. I keep thinking about the exit, the elevator, the street. But then I look at the door and I stay.
The lighter clicked, that tiny metallic snap, and suddenly, I wasn't in a penthouse anymore. I was back in that cramped, spicy smelling kitchen in a Taiwan. The night the world actually shifted. The night I realized that being special to a man like him is actually a death sentence.
Tuesday, 2:15 a.m. I can't sleep. That sound, that click. It took me right back to 6 months ago. I was working that double shift at the fried chicken joint. Grease in my hair, tired down to my actual soul. And then he walked in. He didn't look like a gangster. He just looked lonely. He sat at the corner table and ordered water. Just water. I remember being so annoyed. Like, look man, I've got tables waiting. But then I saw his eyes. They weren't looking at the menu. They were looking at me like I was the only thing in the room that made sense. Well, I dropped a tray of glasses. Pathetic, right? Glass went everywhere. I started bleeding. Just a little nick on my finger before I could even swear. He was there. He didn't call a servant. He didn't make a scene. He just took my hand. His skin was so warm against mine, and he used a silk handkerchief to stop the blood. "You're working too hard," he said. His English was perfect, but his voice was like gravel and honey. I didn't know he was the king of the dirt. I just thought, finally, someone sees me. I wish I could go back and tell that girl to run. But honestly, I think I would have stayed anyway.
You ever feel like you are living in a glass box? Everyone's looking in, but nobody can hear you screaming. I'm looking at this diamond necklace on the dresser. It's heavy, like a collar, and honestly, I think I'm starting to like the weight of it.
Wednesday, 10:14 p.m. The rain is still hitting the windows, that dull, thumping sound like a heartbeat. I'm wearing a dress that cost more than my first car. It's black silk, slides over my skin like water. Hyun is standing by the window, smoking. He shouldn't look that good. You know, the way the neon lights from the city hit the side of his face, making him look like a statue. A very dangerous, very handsome statue. He hasn't said a word in 20 minutes. That's the thing about him. His silence is a weapon. It makes you want to fill the gaps with your own secrets. I walked up behind him. and for a second, I saw his reflection in the glass. He looked tired, not sleepy, but soul tired. I reached out, just a tiny bit, and touched his shoulder. He didn't move, but I felt his muscles jump under that expensive suit. "Di-hyun," I whispered. He turned around, and the way he looked at me, it wasn't a boss looking at a girl. It was a drowning man looking at a life raft. He pulled me in, close, and buried his face in my hair. I could smell the smoke and that sandalwood. And something else, fear, not mine. His, the great Mafia boss of Seoul, was shaking. Just a little bit.
He pulled back and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His touch was so soft, so careful. It reminded me of that night at the Seoul Tower. The night he tried to give me the moon, but I realized the moon was covered in fingerprints I wasn't supposed to see.
Thursday, 1:30 a.m. I keep thinking about that night, the official date. He rented out the entire observation deck, just us, and the wind, and the thousands of lights below. He brought me these deep red roses. They were beautiful. I was so happy. I felt like a princess in one of those dramas. But then I saw it, a man in a dark suit, standing way back in the shadows. He wasn't a waiter. He had that look, that sharp, predatory stillness. Di-hyun saw me looking. He didn't panic. He just took the roses from my hand and handed them to the man. "Check them," he said. The man took a small device, something that looked like a pen, and ran it over the flowers. Electronic sweeps, looking for bugs, looking for a way to kill us through a bouquet. The magic just evaporated. I looked at the roses and all I saw was a threat. I looked at the man I was falling for and realized, he can't even give me a flower without a security protocol. He saw the look on my face, that disappointment. He didn't apologize. He just took my hand and squeezed it until it almost hurt. In my world, Yuri, the beautiful things are the most dangerous. I didn't understand then. I do now.
So, here is the thing about being loved by a man like Dan Ho. You never have to check your bank account, but you also never get to open a door for yourself. I'm sitting in the back of this blackened out sedan, and I feel like a piece of jewelry being moved between safes.
Friday, 6:15 p.m. The leather in this car costs more than my entire life back in London. I'm looking out the tinted window at the people walking in Hongdae, normal girls, wearing sneakers and laughing. I miss the dirt. Is that weird? I miss the way the rain felt on my actual skin, instead of just watching it through bulletproof glass. Di-hyun is sitting next to me. His hand is resting on my thigh. He's reading some documents. His glasses are perched on the bridge of his nose. He looks so academic, like a professor, not a man who decides which shipping containers disappear at the docks. He feels me looking and his thumb starts to move. Just a slow, rhythmic circle against my skin. It's supposed to be soothing, but it feels like he's marking his territory. "You're quiet, Yuri," he says, without even looking up from his papers. How does he do that? How does he know exactly when my mind starts to wander back to the exit? "Just thinking," I tell him. He finally looks at me, and his eyes go soft. That deep chocolate brown that makes me forget I'm basically a captive. He leans over and kisses my temple. It's so tender it hurts.
But then, the car stopped at a red light. A group of girls crossed the street, laughing and taking selfies. One of them looked just like I used to, and I saw the way his bodyguard in the front seat touched his waistband, just checking his peace, just making sure the threat was clear. And it hit me. I'm not his queen. I'm his most expensive.
Saturday, 12:05 a.m. I can't stop thinking about that first month. Back when I thought the guards were just his drivers, we were at this tiny hole-in-the-wall spot. The kind of place where the smoke from the grill gets in your eyes. I was laughing, telling him about my brothers back home, and I reached across the table to grab his hand. Suddenly, 3 men in the booth behind us stood up. All at once, like a machine, I froze. I thought we were being robbed. Or worse, Di-hyun didn't even flinch. He just raised one finger, just one, and they sat back down. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw the boss. Not the man who bought me flowers, but the man people died for. "They're here for you, Zuri," he said, like he was talking about the weather. "To keep me safe?" I asked, my voice shaking. He reached out and tucked a lock of my hair behind my ear. "To make sure nobody else can touch what belongs to me." It sounded like a romantic vow, but sitting here tonight, in this silent penthouse, it feels like a warning. I'm his heart, and in his world, the heart is the biggest target.
Have you ever walked into a room and felt the temperature drop 40 degrees? That's me right now. I'm standing in a ballroom full of Seoul's royalty, and I'm the only one who looks like me. I can feel their eyes like needles.
Saturday, 9:22 p.m. My heels are clicking on the marble floor, and it sounds like a countdown. Di-hyun hasn't let go of my hand once, not since we stepped out of the car. His grip is firm, steady, like he's grounding me. I'm wearing this deep emerald green gown. It's stunning, but I feel like I'm wearing a target. The women in their pearls and their stiff smiles, they don't even look at my face. They look at my skin. Then they look at his hand holding mine, and then they whisper behind their fans. "Ignore them," Di-hyun murmurs, leaning close to my ear. His breath is warm, smelling of expensive cognac and mint. He doesn't look at the crowd. He only looks at me. It's like he's building a wall around us, just with his gaze. One of the older men, a guy with a face like crumpled parchment, walked up to us. He didn't bow, he just looked at me with this cold curiosity. "Is this the one, Di-hyun?" he asked in Korean. Di-hyun didn't blink, he didn't hesitate. "This is Zuri," he said, and his voice had that edge to it, that low rumble that means don't push me. "She is the only one who matters." The old man looked stunned. I felt a rush of something, not just love, but a terrifying kind of pride.
He pulled me closer, his arm wrapping around my waist in front of everyone. It was a bold move, a declaration. It reminded me of that night at the private jazz club. The first time he told me I wasn't just a guest in his life. The night he showed me that being his meant being his equal.
Sunday, 1:45 a.m. I'm back in the penthouse, kicking off these shoes. My feet ache, but my heart feels full. I keep thinking about that jazz club 3 months ago. It was tucked away in an alleyway in Sinsadong, just a basement with velvet curtains and a saxophone player who sounded like he was crying. We were sitting in a dark corner, sharing a plate of fruit. I asked him why he picked me, out of everyone in the city, why the girl from the trenches. He stayed quiet for a long time, just watching the bubbles in his drink. Then he took my hand, and he looked at the scars on my knuckles from when I was younger. "Because you're real, Zuri," he whispered. "In my world, everything is a mask. Everyone wants something from me." He leaned across the table, the candlelight dancing in his eyes. "But you looked at me and saw a man, not a title." He told me that night that he didn't want a queen to sit beside him. He wanted a partner to walk with him through the fire. I remember laughing, thinking he was being dramatic, but tonight, seeing the way those people looked at us. I get it. Our love isn't just a romance, it's a war, and as I watch him take off his tie, I realize I'm ready to fight it. Because the way he looks at me, it makes the whole world feel small.
You ever feel like you are the lead in a movie, but someone else is trying to rewrite your lines? I'm standing at this arts gallery, surrounded by perfection, and then she walks in, tall, polished, and looking at Daeon like she owns his past.
Monday, 10:30 p.m. The gallery is all white walls and expensive, abstract shapes that I don't really get. Daehyun is holding my hand, but his grip is different tonight. It's tighter, like he's holding onto a cliff edge. Then the crowd parts, and there she is, Minhee. She's draped in white lace, looking like a literal porcelain doll. She didn't look at me at first. She just walked straight up to Daehyun and touched his arm, right on the sleeve of his blazer. "It's been a long time, Daehyun," she said in that soft, musical Korean that sounds like a lullaby. I felt a sharp pang in my chest, a cold, sudden realization. She knew the man before he was the boss. She knew the boy. I stood there, my braids gathered in a high bun, my gold hoops catching the light. I felt so loud, so different. Daehyun didn't pull away, but he didn't lean in either. He looked at her. Then he looked at me. "Minhee, this is Yuri," he said, his voice dropping into that protective, low register. "She is my life." The way he said my life, it wasn't a metaphor, it was a shield. Minhee's smile didn't reach her eyes, and for a second, I saw the cracks in the porcelain.
She leaned in and whispered something about a memory they shared. Something about the scent of rain on jasmine. And just like that, I wasn't in the gallery anymore. I was back in that crowded Nandong market, huddled under a plastic trap, while the sky fell down on us. The night I realized he was.
Tuesday, 1:12 a.m. I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, just breathing. I can still smell her perfume, that heavy jasmine, but it doesn't compare to the memory of that market. It was 4 months ago. We were hiding from his security team, just for an hour, just to be normal. The rain was coming down in sheets, soaking through my hoodie. We found this tiny stall selling hot tea diakbaki, the steam rising up in clouds. He looked so out of place in his tailored trousers, sitting on a plastic stool that looked like it would break under him. I remember laughing at him, and he just looked at me, truly looked at me. He took off his jacket and draped it over my shoulders. It was soaked, but it felt like the warmest thing in the world because it was him. "You're shivering, Yuri," he said. He reached out and wiped a drop of rain from my nose. "Why do you stay?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper over the sound of the rain hitting the tarp. "Because you're the only person who makes me feel like I don't have to hide," I told him. He didn't say anything back. He just leaned in the middle of that greasy, loud market, and kissed me. It tasted like spicy sauce and cold rain, and it was the most honest moment of my life. Minhee can have his past. She can have the jasmine and the lace, but she doesn't have that rainy night. She doesn't have the man who sits on plastic stools just to see me smile. I hear the door open. It's him. He doesn't go to his desk. He comes straight to me.
So, they say you can tell a lot about a man by the gifts he gives. But what about the gifts people give you because of him? I just found a box on my dresser, and it's not from Daeon. It's a one-way ticket back to London.
Wednesday, 11:45 p.m. The paper is thick, expensive, and smells faintly of old money and ozone. I'm sitting on the edge of our bed, just staring at that little slip of blue paper. A ticket, a choice. Someone out there wants me gone, and they're being polite about it, for now. I can hear the shower running, the steam hissing behind the frosted glass. Hyun is in there, trying to wash off the day, trying to wash off the city. He thinks I'm asleep. I look around this room, the walk-in closet full of designer bags, the jewelry box that could buy a house in Peckham, and suddenly, it all feels so heavy, like I'm drowning in gold. I picked up the ticket, my thumb tracing the embossed letters of my own name. Zuri. It felt like a ghost calling me back to a life that doesn't exist anymore. The shower stopped. I shoved the ticket under my pillow, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. He walked out, just a towel around his waist, his hair damp and messy. He looked at me, and his face softened, that hard, jagged line of his jaw finally relaxing. "You're still up," he said, his voice like velvet over gravel. He came over and sat beside me, the heat radiating off his skin. He didn't ask what was wrong. He just took my hand and kissed my palm, right where the ticket had been a second ago.
He looked up at me, and for a second, I saw it. That flicker of doubt. It reminded me of the night we stayed at that tiny pension in Jeju. No guards, no suits, just us and the sound of the ocean. The night he showed me the scars he never talks about.
Thursday, 2:30 a.m. I'm watching him sleep, his chest rising and falling in the dark. Jeju was different. The air smelled like salt and citrus. And for 3 days, he wasn't the boss. We were walking along the black sand beach, the wind whipping my hair into a frenzy. He started laughing, a real, deep laugh that shook his whole body. I'd never heard it before. He sat down on a piece of driftwood and pulled me between his knees. "Zuri," he said, looking out at the horizon. "If I could, I'd leave it all behind, the money, the power, the blood." He took my hand and placed it over his heart. "But I'm a prisoner of the things I've built." He told me that night that he was terrified of me leaving, not because of the danger, but because I'm the only thing that makes me feel human. I saw a scar on his side, a jagged, pale line that didn't come from a boardroom. I didn't ask. I just leaned down and kissed it. He grabbed me then, holding me so tight I could barely breathe. "Don't ever let them scare you away," he whispered into my neck. Tonight, looking at that ticket under my pillow, I realized the them he was talking about are finally here. They think a piece of paper can make me run. They think I'm just a girl from the trenches who got lucky. But they don't know me, and they definitely don't know what I'd do to keep this man's heart beating. I reached under the pillow, took the ticket, and ripped it into 100 tiny pieces. I'm not going anywhere.
So, it turned out you can't keep secrets from a man who owns the city's cameras. They home found the straps of that ticket in the trash. Now there are 4 guards outside my bedroom door. I'm not a guest anymore. I'm a prize under lock and key.
Friday, 10:45 p.m. The silence in the penthouse is heavy, like it's made of lead. I'm packing the length of the living room, my bare feet padding softly on the cold marble. Hyun is sitting at the dining table, a glass of amber liquid in front of him. He hasn't touched it. He's just staring at me, his dark eyes tracking every move I make, like a predator watching something precious. "You should have told me, Zuri," he says, his voice low and dangerous. It's not a shout. Hyun never needs to shout. The way the air vibrates when he speaks is enough. "I was protecting you," I snap, stopping in my tracks. He finally stands up. his silhouette cutting through the dim light of the city's skyline. He walks toward me. Slow, deliberate. Each step feels like a heartbeat. When he reaches me, he doesn't grab me, he just leans down, his forehead resting against mine. "You don't protect me by hiding threats," he whispers. "You are the only part of me that isn't stained. If they touch you, there is nothing left of the man you love." He reaches out, his fingers trembling just a little as he strokes my cheek. It's so romantic it's suffocating. He's trying to keep me in a bubble, but I was born in the trenches.
I looked at the way he was guarding the door, and it triggered this memory. A night back in London. Well, not London, but a little flat we rented when he visited me there. The night I realized that no matter how many walls he builds, he's the only one who actually is true.
Saturday, 3:12 a.m. I can still feel the damp London air in that memory. It was raining. Of course, we were in this tiny, cramped kitchen. He had tried to tell me then that I couldn't go to my shift at the cafe because he'd seen a suspicious car. I'd laughed in his face. "You don't own the sidewalk, D. Hyun," I'd told him. He had pinned me against the counter, not with anger, but with this desperate, raw hunger. "I own everything else," he had growled, "but I can't even guarantee you'll come home to me." He had started shaking, actually shaking. That was the first time I saw the cracks in the Mafia boss. The first time I realized that his power is a curse. He spent the whole night sitting on the floor by the door, watching me sleep. He didn't want to control me. He was just terrified of the world taking the only thing that made him feel real. Tonight, in Seoul, he's doing the same thing. He's standing by the window now, looking out at his empire. I walk up behind him and wrap my arms around his waist, pressing my face into his back. I can feel the tension in his muscles start to melt, just a little. "I'm not a porcelain doll, D. Hyun," I whisper. "I'm the girl who chose you, remember that." He turns around in my arms and pulls me into a kiss that tastes like a plea. He's the boss of Seoul, but in this room, he's just a man trying not to lose his soul, and I'm the only one who can save it.
Look, you can take the girl out of the trenches, but you can't take the hustle out of the girl. They thinks he got me locked away for my own good. But he forgot I know how to disappear in plain sight. I'm meeting the ghost who sent me that ticket.
Monday, 11:15 p.m. The lobby of the Lot Hotel is a sea of gold and quiet whispers. I'm wearing a trench coat over a simple black dress. My heart is a drum solo against my ribs. I gave his guards the slip at the spa, a classic move. But my hands are still shaking. I'm sitting at a corner table, waiting for a shadow to take a seat. Instead, I see him. D. Hyun, he isn't storming in. He isn't making a scene. He's just standing by the revolving doors, his eyes fixed on me with a look that is part heartbreak, part fury. He walks over, the air around him practically sparking with static. He doesn't yell. He just slides into the chair across from me and reaches across the table. He takes my wrist, his thumb pressing into my pulse point. "You think I wouldn't find you, Zuri?" he whispers. His voice is so low, so intimate, it makes the hair on my neck stand up. "I'm tired of being a secret, D. Hyun," I say, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm tired of being the thing you hide." He leans in, his face inches from mine, and for a second, I see the boss slip away. "I'm not hiding you from the world," he says, his grip tightening just a fraction. "I'm hiding the world from you, because once you're in, there is no London to go back to."
The way he looked at me then, it was exactly like that night at the Han River Bridge. The wind was howling, and he looked like he was about to lose everything. The night he told me that his love wasn't a gift, it was a contract, a beautiful, terrifying contract.
Tuesday, 2:45 a.m. I'm back in the penthouse. The meeting never happened because he was my shield, but that memory of the Han River, it's the only thing that makes sense right now. We were standing by the railing, the water below us black as ink. He had just survived a disagreement with a rival faction. No blood on him, but his eyes were cold. He had turned to me and said, "Zuri, if you stay past tonight, you aren't just my girlfriend." I remember the way the city lights reflected in his eyes. "You become part of the family, my enemies become yours, my shadow becomes your home." He had reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple silver band, no diamonds, no flash. "I can't give you a normal life," he'd said, his voice breaking, "but I can give you everything I am." I had taken that ring, and I had put it on myself. I realized then that I wasn't just a girl he liked. I was the anchor for a man who was drifting in a sea of monsters. Tonight, sitting in the dark, I realized I didn't go to that hotel to run away. I went there to show the world that I'm not his weakness, I'm his strength. He walks into the room now, still dressed in his suit. He doesn't say a word. He just kneels on the floor between my knees and rests his head in my lap. The great Mafia boss of Seoul, surrendering to the only person who knows his name. I run my fingers through his hair, and for the first time, I'm not afraid of the shadows. I'm the one who controls them.
So we made it. I'm looking at the sunrise over the Han River, and for the first time, the city doesn't feel like a cage. Home is standing right next to me. No guards, no guns, just a man who chose a girl from the trenches over a crown of blood.
Saturday, 6:00 a.m. The light is hitting the penthouse windows, turning everything to gold. Hyun is behind me, his chin resting on my shoulder, his arms wrapped tight around my waist. He's finally let it go. Last night, he walked into that council meeting, the one where they told him I had to go. He didn't fight them. He didn't threaten them. He just laid his signet ring on the table, the symbol of his family's 100-year rule, and walked out. "They think power is about who you can crush," he whispered into my ear just now. "But true power is being able to walk away from the throne and still feel like a king." I can feel the steady, calm beat of his heart against my back. It's the first time I haven't felt that underlying vibration of anxiety in his skin. He's just Hyun, the man who likes his coffee too black and forgets where he puts his keys. We're leaving for the airport in an hour, not as refugees, but as people who finally own their own lives. London, Jeju, it doesn't matter where we go, as long as the air we breathe is ours. He turns me around in his arms, his eyes searching mine, looking for any trace of regret. He only finds a reflection of the peace he finally gave me.
He kissed me, and it felt like the first time all over again. It took me back to that night in the rain, the night I actually packed my bags, the night I realized that leaving him would be like leaving the very best part of myself behind.
Saturday, 8:15 a.m. I'm looking at the photo on the nightstand. The one of us in that messy chicken shop. 5 months ago, I was halfway out the door, the threats, the Minhees, the bodyguards. It had all become too much. I had my suitcase zipped, and I was standing in the foyer, crying. Hyun had come home early. He saw the bags, and he didn't stop me. He didn't use his power. He just stood there, looking so small in that massive hallway. "If you go, I'll make sure you're safe for the rest of your life," he had said, his voice breaking. "But please, take my heart with you. I don't want it if you aren't here to keep it." He hadn't asked me to stay for him. He had asked me to take his love as a shield. That was the moment I realized. He wasn't my captor, he was my partner. I dropped the bags then, and I haven't picked them up since, until today. But this time, we're packing together. He's laughing now, actually laughing, as he tries to fit my sneakers into his designer suitcase. It's a happy ending, the kind they don't write for girls like me or men like him. But we're writing our own script now. The Mafia boss and the girl from the trenches. Finally just two people in love.
So, I guess the question is, would you give up a kingdom for a feeling? Or is power the only thing that actually keeps you safe? Let me know what you think, because for us, the real story is just beginning. Comment where you're watching from and kindly subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories.